Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Rebirth TV and I am Stacy Benton and we are currently doing our Rebirth Experience series, which is from the novel Rebirth A Gift, and we are in part 1, which is conception. So if this is your first time just kind of looking at the video, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. But also go back and watch the other videos so you can kind of get a better feel of everything that we're doing here and gathering all the information necessary so you can continue your journey of healing from your complex trauma. So right now we're in part 1. And we're going back and exploring and examining what happens in childhood, because the main concept is for you to really get a better understanding of your own childhood trauma and how that have impacted you in adulthood. So, and hindering you from really fulfilling your full potential in life, your goals, your aspirations, things of that nature. That's really important to you so you can now be the best version of yourself, the best authentic version of who you always envision yourself to be. So if you can see here, I am going to just quickly switch screens because on the previous video, we did go over just childhood abuse and how that actually impacts your life. But also I want to share a article here from Very Well Mind. So I'm at www.verywellmind.com. And in this article is just really explaining, let's see here. It's really just going over treating the effects of childhood trauma. This article is by Amy Morin, and she is a licensed social worker. And I thought that this was a very, very good article. Just really shows you what you may have experienced when it comes to your own childhood trauma or childhood abuse. Now, these statistics are based on the United States. So an estimated 46% of children experience trauma at some point in their young lives. While kids are resilient, they're not made of stone. Adults often say things like they were so young when that happened, they won't even remember it as an adult. But childhood trauma can have a lifelong effect. That's not to say that a child will be emotionally scarred forever if they endure a horrific experience, but it's important to recognize when a child may need professional help for dealing with their trauma. Early intervention can also prevent the ongoing effects of the trauma into adulthood. And if you see here, I'm just going to scroll down. And it just talks about what is childhood trauma. So childhood trauma is an event experienced by a child that evokes fear and is commonly violent, dangerous, or life-threatening. Also sometimes referred to as adverse childhood experience, or ACEs. There are many different experiences that can lead to trauma. Physical or sexual abuse, for example, can be traumatic for children. One-time events like a car accident, natural disaster like a hurricane or a tornado, the loss of a loved one, or a major medical incident can take a psychological toll on children as well. Ongoing stress, such as living in a dangerous neighborhood or being the target of bullying, can also be traumatic for a child, even if it just feels like daily life to an adult. Childhood trauma doesn't even have to involve experiences that occur directly to the child. Watching a loved one endure a major health issue, for instance, can be extremely traumatic for children. Violent media can have this effect too. So as you can see here, it's just kind of like explaining what is a childhood trauma and how that adversely impacts the child as an adult. Now, I'm going to click here for adverse childhood experiences, And because I thought that the ACEs is a test that you could actually do to see where you rate when it comes to any type of adverse trauma or childhood experience that you to kind of give you a rating of where you lie and what is your likelihood of that impacting you in adulthood. And that was very, very interesting because it definitely puts things into perspective when it comes to what you maybe have experienced as far as your childhood trauma. Okay. And again, when you go back and watch the other videos, I did actually mention childhood trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, just saying that there could definitely be an impact when it comes to your childhood trauma and your if you are suffering or experiencing post-traumatic stress. So there is definitely a connection there as well. So what I'm going to do on this video, I'm going to wait on just clicking each one of the highlighted topics and just come back and kind of dive deeper into those statistics on this article. I think this is a very great article. It's available to the public, so you can actually go and view yourself and just get a better understanding of what your experiences were. So as many as 15% of girls and 6% of boys develop post-traumatic stress disorder following a traumatic event. Children with post-traumatic stress disorder may re-experience the trauma in their minds over and over again. They might also avoid anything that reminds them of the trauma or reenact the trauma in their play. Sometimes children believe that they missed warning signs predicting the traumatic event. In an effort to prevent future traumas, they become hypervigilant and looking for signs that something bad is going to happen again. So what this causes for them to just always be on a heightened state and in a state of anxiety. So if you see that your child may, or you may have, when you was a child, always felt plugged or not plugged, but triggered or anxious or your heart racing really fast, that is definitely a underlining sign and tone or warning signal that there has been some trauma that has taken place. Children with post-traumatic stress disorder may also act younger than they are, such as by sucking their thumb, experience trouble focusing, feel more depressed or anxious, find it difficult to be affectionate with others, have increased anger and aggression, have issues in school, have trouble sleeping, lose interest in activities they once enjoyed, lose touch with reality. So looking at they will become disassociated, kind of like drifting off into space, creating a world that's outside of their actual reality to escape it. Seem detached, numb, or non-responsive, worry about dying young. Even children who don't develop post-traumatic stress disorder may still exhibit emotional and behavioral issues following a traumatic experience. Here are some things to watch for during the weeks and months after an upsetting event. So if there is a trigger, and you can relate this in two ways. Relate it to your own childhood trauma or abuse, and also if you have a child and you feel that you're not completely healed, and you may be in a situation where the child may be experiencing some trauma as a result of your trauma or the situation that you may be currently in. For instance, if you're in a domestic violence situation or you're experiencing, or someone you know that the child is connected to, that it may be a caregiver is experiencing chronic illness or disease where there's a lot of suffering. So you want to look at this twofold. You want to examine it from your experience, but also examine it from the experience of your child. Okay, so these are the things you want to kind of look out for. Anger issues, attention problems, change in appetite, development of new fears, increased concerns about death or safety, irritability, loss of interest in normal activities, problem sleeping, sadness, school refusal, somatic complaints like headaches and stomach aches. These can all be signs and symptoms that your child is going through a level of trauma. And what you want to do is definitely sit down, talk to your child, and also think about your own experiences in the very beginning where you may have experienced your childhood trauma. Okay? So here are some impacts of childhood trauma. Traumatic events can affect how a child's brain develops, which can have lifelong consequences for them physically, mentally, and socially. Physical health impacts. So these are some of the physical signs that the child may be experiencing as a result of the traumatic event. Okay, the stress can impair the development of their immune and central nervous system, making it harder to achieve their full potential. Specifically, it notes that exposure to repeated trauma increases a child's risk of developing asthma, coronary heart disease as an adult, diabetes, or stroke. Whew. So I know this is some heavy information, but one of the aspects of empowering yourself and healing from this is going to the foundation, where it all started. So now you can help your child or your children, or if you plan to have children in the future, by you healing and dealing with this, it will be a preventative method from having a negative impact in your health and the health of the child if they experience the trauma as a result of your trauma. So there is a connection. And it also, a 2019 review of 134 different research-based articles adds that exposure to adverse experiences as children increases the risk of developing several different conditions, such as autoimmune diseases, pulmonary diseases, cardiovascular diseases, and cancer in adulthood, as well as increasing levels of pain. Now, I know that when you're going through your own trauma, there may not be such a connection. And I'm gonna stop this article here and we'll come back to examine this, because I think it's some very powerful information, educational information in this article. So definitely much credibility goes to verywellmind.com for putting this article together, because it puts it in perspective, the connection. So if you have experienced childhood trauma and you maybe have a cardiovascular disease, heart disease, cancer, you have an autoimmune disease like lupus or pulmonary disease, lung disease, and you have issues with pain all over your body, like intense aching, just pain, different levels of headaches, body aches. This can definitely be correlated to your childhood trauma. And this is very interesting, but very informative. And it will help you to understand why it's so important for you to go through your healing process. Childhood trauma has an impact on your health, physical, psychological. So I'm going to end this here, but we will start back with the conception series and with this article on the next video.